What is up, team? Today's video is going to be a discussion about what Square Enix could do in 4.0 to improve the tanking meta. And yes, the tanking meta needs improving. The videos you're seeing now is just of me and some friends map glitching. It's just basically to have something moving on the screen while I talk. That being said, we need to discuss the tanks in 4.0 and what I think they could do, they might do, or they should do to improve the meta. And the first thing, straight away, we're going to get right into it. The first thing is stats. Right now, tanks use strength and vit as a main stat. It's a bit weird. You see these instances where throughout the patch cycle we've had tanks that have switched out vit accessories for strength accessories, which in itself is pretty bad game design, because you really want to brand a tank with his own accessories. I mean, there were one or two patches where wearing vit accessories was looked down upon because it didn't give you an overall benefit to wearing full strength accessories or crafted accessories. So that's one thing that needs to be fixed for sure. And that ties into parry as well. Parry is useless. It has no use in the game, which means parry materia has no use in the game, which means we have elements and stats and items in this game which have no use, which that is extremely bad game design for an MMO, and it's really bad for casual players as well. Players who are not as informed as veteran players are going to pick up parry materia thinking, oh, tanks are usually associated with parry and defense. I mean, of course I'm going to have that. Little to know that they're doing nothing for their character, due to the game being very DPS heavy in its design. So, to counteract that, I would hope to see Square rebranding the stats in a way that they make parry and vit a main stat, or they consolidate all those stats into a new tanking stat, which gives them their damage and their mitigation. So either making parry a main stat, or taking strength off of their stat system would be overall very good for the game design in itself. And then moving on from that, we have to really look at another kind of core system they could very easily change, that would make tanks more attractive, is off global stance dancing. Warrior has this already. It makes tanking on Warrior really fun, because you can switch in and out of tank stance and DPS stance, use your combos on the fly, and you don't get punished for that. It doesn't feel rigid, it's very fluid and dynamic. Whereas when you play a Dark Knight and a Paladin, it's very robotic. To take off your stance, you have to do it at the end of a GCD. To put on your stance, you have to use up a GCD. It feels very rigid and very robotic, and there's no benefit to it. I can't think of anyone that thinks that there's a benefit in eating a GCD for a stance change. So I would definitely for sure do some changes to the stance system for Dark Knight and Paladin. Make it so it's OGCD. That would really bring some fluidity to the other tanks, and it would be just way more fun to play. And on the topic of playing tanks, we need to look at the overall compatibility of the three tanks. We know that Warrior is needed. Warrior is absolutely needed. Warrior slots into any scenario, even double Warrior. It slots into double Warrior fine. The problem we have is double Dark Knight, double Paladin. Paladin and Dark Knight are not viable. They are harmful to the party. And one reason for this is due to the slashing resistance, which Warrior offers. Now, I know Ninja offers it, but we're talking more about tanks here. So one thing I would hope that they do, for the love of God, I hope they do this to the tanks, is they unify or remove resistances. By unify, I mean you give Dark Knight the ability to put slashing, you give Paladin the ability to give slashing. Use it as a cross skill or something. I don't know. Just give tanks the ability to put their own slashing up. That in itself would solve a load of issues. You would have viable compatibility between all three tanks for any type of content. as it stands, even in casual content, using a Paladin and a Dark Knight together is rough and a detriment. So give all the tanks slashing or remove the resistance system as part of a 4.0 combat overhaul. That would also work, but in doing that you need to give the tanks something else that would have been there in the place of Storm's Eye, because there is an art to keeping up debuffs in this game, and having debuff optimization. It is a pretty fun and skill aspect of the game, so for sure you need to replace the origins of the Storm's Eye with some type of a debuff that benefits the warrior or the party. So those are the major 3 points I have for tanks in 4.0 and how they could really push the tanking meta in the expansion. And that's all I got for today. So you guys tell me what you thought in the comments. Do you feel they need to add anything? Let me know.